Hey everybody, Adam Barlicky here. I want to do a quick little video to teach you a little bit about bracket game theory and probability. If you've been entering one of those NCAA bracket pools for 30 years and have never won it, and it just seems like the same few of your friends win it every year, you're about to find out why. This is what I did for this year. First, the most important thing is to know the amount of participants. One bracket pool I've been participating in for many years is my friend Jason has one. About 100 brackets are entered every year. And the main problem that most people have is they follow a strategy where it seems like they're trying to finish in the top 25%. And that's basically just throwing your money away. You want to try and win the pool because they're probably only paying for a second or third place. If you pick a team that 30 other people pick, you're probably going to win once every 147 years. So I'll try and get into the math of that in a few minutes. Uh, First, it's important to know the custom scoring system. If they're not going with the default CBS scoring, our pool happens to have this. Um, I hate the default scoring that CBS has, where it's 32 points for the final match, because you pretty much must win the championship. Otherwise, you have no chance of winning. This is not as drastic, but it's still quite important. You still almost need to pick the champion and be the highest bracket that has that champion. So just to do a quick little example here, if we go with that assumption that you have to have the champion and you have to have the highest bracket with that champion, let's say you picked the overall favorite UConn this year, which according to Vegas odds has about a 21% chance of winning the whole tournament. They're the overwhelming favorite. The problem being is about 31% of the brackets are picking UConn to win the whole thing. That might get you in the top third, but it's almost never going to win you the tournament. And the reason why is because you have to do this formula. Of the 30 other people that picked out of the 100 that picked UConn, you have a 1 in 31 chance of being the highest ranked bracket that has that team. If I multiply that 1 in 31 times the actual chance that UConn will win the championship, there's only a 0.68% chance of winning the pool for each person that picked UConn. So you're entering 1% of the brackets and you have a 0.68% chance of winning. To put it another way, if you follow that strategy every year, you always pick the overwhelming favorite, you're probably going to win once every 147 years. So not during your lifetime. Here's what I put together to help you understand a little bit about the probability behind the first round games. And I made some new enhancements for this year. So first, let me show you how I edit my spreadsheet. I have a formula here which calculate you can type in this money line column the Vegas odds, like as of today, for any of these games. And sometimes money lines, are negative, sometimes they're positive. So this is a conditional expression. If it's negative, here's the formula for converting that to an estimated win percentage. If it's positive, here's the formula for converting it into a estimated win percentage, and that populates the implied win percentage column. Now, you've noticed I put our friend's custom scoring system in this points if win column, right? So it's going to multiply the win percentage times the points if win to get you an expected value, EV. And it does it on the other side for their opponent as well. And then the center column with all the colors, it's comparing that. So the darker green, that means this expected value, 6.67 here, is 3.39 higher than this team's expected value. That might help you with some of the first round decisions, but it's not the only thing. It might make we need to look at something else called leverage, which I've added this year, because it's not so much a math problem of picking what has the highest probability of the highest possible points for you. You need to know what your friends are doing, what the public is doing. And we're going to talk about something called leverage, because it matters. And so I knew for this year, you've noticed if you ever click on that little eye next to the games in CBS, it shows you the users pick. And it shows you 81% of people picked Kansas and 19% picked Samford. That's very valuable information. Um, Most people don't look at it that closely, but it really matters. Because you need to look for little inefficiencies where the public is way too heavily weighted on someone given their chance to win, or where they're underweighted on a team. Um, like if you know a team has a 30% chance of winning, but the only 20% of the brackets are picking that team, that's good news for you. So we'll talk more about that lately. So I by clicking on all the different eyes next to different matchups, you can populate this users pick column, and that's going to help me calculate something called leverage and leverage plus. Leverage is the how much the win percentage exceeds the user's pick or is lower than it, and lev plus is the percentage by which the win percentage exceeds the user's pick multiplied by the chance of winning. So it's like your leverage multiplied by how likely that is to happen. So you want to look for high leverage matchups where the public is betting incorrectly compared to the Vegas odds. Because when you get those right, you're going to pass more people in the rankings than what seems appropriate. And when you lose, you're going to go down fewer spots than it seems appropriate. So the more high leverage picks you make, the more of those that go your way, you have a chance of getting one of those 99% percentile brackets. So more about that in a second. Yeah, so I learned the last couple of years, I learned the hard way that you can't just pick the green team here always, or if one of these the ones that are kind of in the middle, like the 0.33, I can't just go with whoever's here, like this one here. St. Mary's is more likely to get me 0.33 more points than picking Grand Canyon. Does that make it correct? Not necessarily. It's mathematically correct, but if I need to pay attention to leverage, and we'll talk about more about that in a second. We want to finish, if you're trying to finish in the top 10% or top 15%, you're just throwing your money away year after year. We want to finish in the top 1 or 2%. So these things, by adding the public betting percentages. So again, leverage is the estimated win percentage minus the estimated percent of brackets that pick that team. And lev plus is that leverage times the percentage that team will actually win, the likeliness of that to occur. So I'm going to give you a couple examples of how powerful that is. I'm going to pick one of the matches that was yellow up above, Kansas versus Samford. Remember, the win formula for a favorite is n divided by n minus 100. So since Kansas's odds to win are negative 300, that means they're 75% to win. And the formula for a dog is 100 divided by 100 plus n. So they are about 29% to win. Now you notice that doesn't quite add to 100%, it's a little bit over. And from what I gather, it almost always is about 104.5%. So I think FanDuel's rake, where I got the odds from, is about 4.5%. So, but it's close enough for our purposes. We're using this to estimate. Okay, so now we're going to look at a little bit of leverage, the user's pick here. The leverage for Samford is roughly 29% chance to win minus 19% of the people who are picking them is 10%. And there's a 29% chance that win is going to occur. So 29% times 10 is 290% leverage plus. If you pick that and get it right, you're going to jump more people in the rankings than what seems reasonable. It's because not enough of the public is picking Samford to win, given their substantial 29% chance to win. Okay, here's another one from a more close matchup. I'm going to examine a 8 versus 9 matchup. Now let's scroll up and look at that one. Nebraska versus Texas A&M. Where was that over here? Nebraska versus Texas A&M is here in the South region. Nebraska is 59% to win, and Texas A&M 51%. Again, that adds up to over 100%. I know, but it's close as we're going to get. Let's look at the leverage and the leverage plus. Nebraska has 6% leverage because even though they're 53% to win, only 47% of the public are picking them. And Texas A&M, even though they're 51% to pin, more than 53% of public are picking them to win. So it's negative leverage. Let's go back to over here. So if I were to look at that example again, Even though it's mathematically correct to pick A&M, I think they were favored. Yeah, are they? Where is it? Um, I really care about the leverage plus column. That 47% of the public is picking Nebraska, despite them being 53% to win. Um, and so the leverage for the plus for the favorite is huge in this situation. The lev for A&M was negative. Um, take it for what it's worth. I use the leverage more as a tiebreaker sometimes. If it's really dark green or really dark red, I'll go with that, either the favorite or the dog, respectively. Um, before we go pick our first round games, I'm going to come back to that model one later. I don't like to pick my first round games until I know my conference champion, and then I work backwards. So I made a separate model here that takes the Vegas odds. These are the 12 teams most likely to win the championship, and their Vegas money line to win the championship. All right. So I can do the same thing and calculate the implied win percentage um, and of each team to win. And also the points in Jason's scoring system if that team does win the championship, because it's different for each team depending on their seed plus 21. All right. Um, and we can see, and here's your formula for calculating. I added a column here because what really matters, since that's a lot of points, what really matters is the probability that your team wins the championship and that you have the highest ranked bracket that has that team. So we saw about 31% of people are probably going to pick Connecticut, right? That gives them down here, if exactly 30 out of 100 brackets pick it, each of those brackets has a 0.74 chance of winning the tournament. That's too low for my tastes. You're basically paying $5 for 1% of the brackets, and you only have a 0.7% chance of winning the tournament. I'm out. Okay. I think the sweet spot here, I'm focusing on these. There's about a few teams here that have about between 4 and 8% chance of winning, but only between 2 and 4% of the public is picking them. So your expected value is more than you're buying 1% of the brackets, but you're getting more than a 1% chance to win. See these ones I highlighted in green? Now it should catch your eye. The Duke is a little high, but that's misleading. It's because they have a 3.23% chance of winning and 1% of CBS users are picking them. So that just pretty much means you have a 3.23% chance of winning if you're 1 out of 100 brackets that have it. I happen to know that our pool of 100 friends has a lot of Dukies in it. We're probably going to get between 3 and 6 brackets picking Duke. So this is misleading. It's probably going to be closer to 1% chance of winning. Um, so let's take a deeper dive into Arizona and just do the math. They have an 8.3% chance to win. And the CBS user pick says only about 5% of people are going to pick them. So 5 out of 100. So the LEV is the 8.33 minus the 5%. And the LEV plus is the chance of winning times the likelihood that that's going to happen. 8.8 times 3, about a 27% chance to win, which is very nice. I'm not certain I want the one that has the highest LEV plus, because I notice some of them, like Houston, is 33.2%, and Houston doesn't feel right to me. Because this is kind of low. You're buying 1% of the brackets and you have a 1.19% chance of winning. It's basically they have a 12% chance of 14% chance of winning and almost 14% chance of percent of people are picking them. It's so close that it's not worth it for me. So meanwhile, look at Auburn here at the 2.78%. To put it another way, if you pick Auburn to win the championship, you are almost 4 times as likely to win your pool than someone who picks UConn. Let that sink in. Almost 4 times as likely. And this is just to start. These numbers are assuming that everybody else is equally skilled at picking the rest of the games. You're already at an advantage before even seeing how many first round games you get right. So now that I've narrowed it down to those 4 teams, I want to see. I'm only allowed to enter 2 brackets in his pool. Who do I pick? All right. I want them to face the overall favorite UConn as late as possible in the tournament. Arizona would have to face in the Final Four. It's not bad, but it's not great either. Auburn would have to face UConn in the Sweet 16. That could be a blessing or a disguise. They could get knocked off and my bracket is busted. But, you have to remember, UConn earned the easiest region, right? So if they do knock off UConn, they have an easier rest of their way to make it to the Final Four. Their path is easier. So I'm intrigued by that. And these are also good. Both Creighton and Marquette would not have to face UConn. They're not in their region. They're not even their same side of the bracket. So the only way they would ever face UConn is if UConn was still alive in the championship final. That's good news. So, but given the higher lev plus of Auburn and Arizona, I think you'd probably pass the most people in the rankings if one of those is correct. I decided, since I'm entering two brackets and my son is entering two brackets, I'll go with we'll hedge our bets. I'm gonna do with Auburn and Marquette, and he's gonna take Arizona and Creighton. We'll just sprinkle it that way. This way, Berlicki's most likely to win. So, but now let's go back to the first round picks. I'm gonna do it region by region to see what jumps out at me here. So here, UConn, of course, that's kind of not even worth looking at. They're not going to have any trouble with Stetson. The Florida Atlantic versus FAU matchup is intriguing. You can see by the light green, the 1.19 EV difference, that it's mathematically correct to pick FAU. But let's look at the leverage. They're 60% to win, but only 56% of users are picking them. When Northwestern, well, it's about even. So it's kind of like, I'm looking at the leverage plus. They have FAU has 290 lev plus, and Northwestern only has 19%. So even though this game, I think it's an easy pick for me. They're not only mathematically favored, but not enough of the public is picking them. I would pass more people in the rankings than what seems reasonable if I get that right. Okay, San Diego State UAB. Here's another 5 versus 12 matchup. San Diego has a slightly higher EV to win, but what a lev plus disparity. You notice the huge negative lev plus for San Diego State. So this, for me, is one of the good opportunities to pick the 12 over the 5. They have a 31% chance. See, UAB has a 31% chance of winning, but only 22% of the public pick them. Okay, that's money in your pocket. The more of those high leverage picks you make and get right, you're going to jump a lot of people in the rankings. This is crazy good. It's just so it's not worth the higher expected value of taking FAU because of the leverage difference. Here's an easy one. Here's a 4 versus 13 Auburn versus Yale. Dark green is good. It's such a high EV difference that it's not even worth your time to consider it. See another one, the BYU versus Duquesne. This was one of my favorite picks. Doesn't mean I'm going to win it, but I'm really this is like a core one where, because it's so dark green, I might pick it in all of my brackets if I have other pools too. Illinois versus Moorhead. That was an easy pick for Illinois. I'm only going to skim for the more interesting matchups. Here's an interest one. Washington State versus Drake. This one I might have to split up between my two brackets. The EV for Drake is actually, so see the red here, negative 1.8. It's much better to pick Drake mathematically, but we have a big discrepancy in the lev plus. Negative 80 for Drake, plus 318% for Washington State. So not only is this a coin flip game, I have 51% versus 53%. Remember, it adds up to more than 100, but they're so likely to win compared to only 45% of people picking Washington State that I think you'll pass a lot of people in the rankings if you get Washington State correct. I'm so torn because it's not mathematically correct. So what I think I'm gonna do in that one is one bracket's gonna have Drake, one's gonna have Washington State. Okay, let's move on to the West region. The most interesting games, Michigan State versus Mississippi State here. This is a tough choice here. Michigan State is mathematically favored with the custom point scoring system, but they also have too high of a percentage of the public picking them than what seems reasonable. Like you go 54% chance of winning, but 60% of the public is picking you. Another split scenario, I might pick Mississippi State in one bracket, Michigan State in the other, just hedge my bets. This is a lovely one I want to talk about here. Another 5-12 matchup, St. Mary's um, versus Grand Canyon. You see it's very yellow, 0.33. It's mathematically correct to pick St. Mary's, but you can see the St. Mary's, they do have positive leverage, but barely. It's much higher on the Grand Canyon side. I might go with Grand Canyon in both brackets here. Um, Something like this always happens, and this is one of the ones I'm targeting over the other 12-5 matchups because of how many people I would pass, more than what seems reasonable. Alabama versus Charleston. This is another one I'm very conflicted here. The positive 1.4 EV difference is significant, and so is their 83% chance of winning. But the tiebreaker here, I didn't have time to build separate models for Vegas odds to make Sweet 16, Vegas odds to make Elite Eight, Vegas odds to make Final Four. Those are important. I'm probably going to do that for next year because this is one of those scenarios where I'm boxing myself in. I would have rather decided the later round before I decided the first round games. So that's something I'll do for next year. I'll talk about that later. But I think I'm going to have Alabama going further than most, mainly because of I looked at somebody else's to make Elite Eight model, and there was things where like Alabama has a 23% chance to reach the Elite Eight, but only 13% of the public picked that. So that's one of those things where you jump a lot of people in the standings. Here's another one, Clemson versus University of New Mexico. Look at the dark red here. Whoa, for New Mexico. Not only are they a favorite, just the way the seedings came out, but not enough people are picking them. 58% to win and only 44% of the public picking them. Yes, please. Okay, next interesting one here is the Dayton-Nevada matchup. Nevada's an easy choice for me. They're not only favored to win, but not enough of the public is picking them. So Nevada, look at that. That's another red one, -2.5. They're favored, 54% to win, only 48% of the public picking them. Easy pick for me. Doesn't mean I'm going to get these right, but I just got to trust the process. It's not going to win me a pool every year. It's just going to make me more likely than most if I stick with the process. So South region, we got Nebraska is an easy pick for me here. I'm not even going to bother talking about Houston, but Nebraska versus A&M. That's the one we talked about earlier, right? Yeah. So mathematically correct to pick Texas A&M, but the leverage is all with Nebraska. Wisconsin versus JMU. Here's another interesting 5 versus 12. It's very yellow, 0.25, right? But I'm really shocked with how high of a percentage of the public is picking JMU. And not only that, because my bracket pool of friends happens in Virginia, I feel like too many people are going to take James Madison. We'll see when the brackets come out, but I bet you even more than 32% of our friends are going to pick James Madison, which makes it not good. So I'm taking Wisconsin, even though it's a mathematical coin flip, expected value wise, I think I can pass the most people in the rankings by picking Wisconsin and getting it right. Okay, Duke versus Catamounts, not worth talking about. Texas Tech versus NC State. I really hope this goes with Texas Tech. The ACC tournament. I think by winning the ACC tournament, too many people are picking NC State, given their chances to win. So we have 45% of the users picking NC State, despite only Vegas thinks they have a 35% chance to win. That's like, does the public really know better than Vegas odds makers? I don't think so. I mean, it could go either way, of course, but more often than not, Vegas is more accurate than my friends. Next, Kentucky versus Oakland. This is an easy pick of Kentucky for me, but yeah, I've been reading stuff about this. There's something very fishy about this one. There's articles talking about casinos becoming insolvent because too much basically dark money is coming in Kentucky. Like, so much of the public is betting Kentucky to win the whole tournament that a lot of the casinos are not going to be able to handle it if it actually happens. They're going to be in trouble. So I'm like suspicious. Like, what are they going to do? Pay off Kentucky players to or refs? Like, it's there's something shady about this game. I wouldn't be surprised if Oakland won. But it's so dark green. I can't bring myself to pick them. So I'm sticking with Kansas for that one, but I don't see Kentucky going as far as everybody else does. Um, Florida versus Colorado. It's both mathematically correct and it's a huge gap between Colorado's 47% to win and for some reason only 26% of the public picked Colorado, despite them being 47% to win. Where the Colorado, yep. I have a feeling that might be because they were like the play-in game. Like people didn't know, so they picked the known quantity. They knew Florida was going to be in that game. So it might be misleading and that the user's pick was not correct when I took the screenshot because people were waiting for the playing game to occur. But that's the only thing I think of. Midwest region here. We got look at the dark red here for TCU, the 8 versus 9 matchup. Wow. Not only are they a 65% chance to win, so it's mathematically correct to pick them, but only 58% of the public picking them. Yes, please. I'm taking TCU in every bracket. Gonzaga versus McNeese. It's mathematically correct, 1.13 to pick Gonzaga. The thing that's just fishy is that not enough people are picking McNeese. If you notice the users pick, only 23% of people are picking them despite they have a 29% chance to win. That sounds very tasty to me. I might take McNeese in one bracket, if not both. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I might take it in both. Because my goal is not to finish in the top 1/3. I want to get in the top 1% of our pool. I know there was a key late injury for Kansas that might shrink some of the leverage for Sanford. But with their win, I'm inclined to take Sanford in both brackets here. Look at this. They're actually 29% to win, probably because of the Kansas injury, but only 18% of the public is picking them. It's an expected value coin flip, 0.09. I think I'm taking Sanford in one, if not both brackets. I can't decide. And next we got South Carolina versus Oregon. Easy Oregon pick for me. It's both mathematically correct. See the red here, the negative 2.62. And it really doesn't make sense that they are the favorite, 52.38% to win, but only 46% of the public picking them. That's strange. Next one, the 7-10 matchup, Texas, Colorado State University. Another mathematical coin flip here with expected value. The tiebreaker here, and this doesn't even make sense. 45% to win for Colorado State University, despite only 17% of the public picking them. What? I think that means I have to take Colorado State in all my brackets. And this might be another one of those scenarios where, because the Colorado State was the play-in game, people filled out their brackets ahead of time and not knowing who the play-in winner was going to be, they just took Texas to be safe. Maybe that would shake out and not be the correct user pick. It just seems way too fishy to me that a 45% favorite would only get 17% of the public. So, okay. So I want to interject here. I'm pasting something in that I didn't get this video out before the tournament started, but the tournament started, which lets me see everybody else's picks. So I want to see if I correctly picked how many of my friends out of the 100 would pick those teams. And indeed, we just happened to get exactly 100 brackets on the nose. And I think I nailed it with most of these. I was correct. 30 people picked UConn. I think 12 or 13 picked Houston and Purdue. I correctly picked that 3 or more would have Duke, so I stayed away from that as the national champion. I was correct that too many people would have Kentucky for what seems reasonable. And this is what makes me happy. I'm one of only 2 brackets that had Auburn. So 2% of the entries, despite a 5.56% chance to win the whole tournament. I'm so happy about that. And I'm only one of 2 brackets to have Marquette. So 2% of the entries, despite 3.85% chance to win the whole tournament. That's wonderful. I will do that as many times as I'm allowed. If I was allowed to enter more brackets, I would do that and pick all these teams that have scenarios like this. Now, to show you why math is important, this is what I really found amusing. I decided to look at who else had Marquette and Auburn. And what's funny is the other person with Auburn is Andrew Uretsky, who was our 2023 pool champion. So, and I'm the other person who picked Auburn, and I won it in 2019 and 2021. And so then I checked who the other person who had Marquette. It's Michelle Bresnick Walsh, who was also the only other one of our friends to win the tournament twice, 2012, 2013. So if you're not paying attention now, if that doesn't make you want to pay attention, then I don't know what else will. You're just throwing your money away if you pick UConn every year. Um, I'll take a look at Brandon's picks. I had him pick the other two teams I was narrowing in on. 6% of people picked Arizona. I had guessed that 5 people would. So, but still, it's good. It's still positive. He's expected to win something, maybe because it's 8.3% chance to win and only 6% of the brackets. That's good. That's the kind of matchups you look for. And he's slightly favored with he picked Creighton. They three of the 100 brackets had Creighton, and there's a 3.85% chance to win. So slightly good. It would have been better for Brandon if there was only one other person to pick Creighton, but unfortunately 2 other people picked Creighton. But it's still positive return on investment, ROI they call it. So some of the things I didn't get to, these are screen grabs from somebody else's. I want to build this for next year, but you notice I only had models for to win the tournament and for the first round. I want to build the ones in between. And that helped because I think it helps to work backwards. You want to pick your champion first, and then you want to some of these things will, if you figure out who you want your Sweet 16 Elite 8 to be before you pick your first round games, I think it's smarter because it helps you with a lot of those first round games that were kind of coin flips. So I'll be more informed next year. But here's the thing I want to talk about with the UConn. Remember, 22% chance of winning the tournament, but 31% of people picking them. Look at to win the tournament. This is a screen grab from a paid site called Pool Genius. Negative leverage to win the tournament. And let me show you some other screen grabs. I took these from a YouTuber who's like a golf analyst that knows nothing about basketball, but his brackets are always in the top 95% because when you follow one of these models, you don't need to even watch any basketball. You're basically trusting that Vegas knows better than your friends. So here was that sweet spot I targeted. See where I'm circling here. These are those teams that have between a 4 and 8% chance of winning, despite only between 2 and 4% of the public picking them. So they have big leverage to win the tournament, whereas UConn does not. And some of the other things that caught my eye. Some of these things when deciding between like Marquette and Duke, like one of them had higher leverage to make the Final Four, but then it flipped. The other one Marquette had higher leverage to make the championship and win the tournament. Just intriguing. I don't know what to make of it yet. And then look at Houston here. The Houston leverage to make Final Four was a negative 400 lev plus to make the Final Four, negative 433%. That's why I stayed away from them. Let me see what else jumped out at me. Next year I'm going to have these other in between models, but let's look at some of these jumps where like Alabama, they have huge negative lev plus, negative 328% to make the Sweet 16, but look, it flips. When you go to the Elite 8, it flips to positive 212. The other teams above them have negative to make the Elite 8. That's very intriguing to me. That's like I think I'm going to have Alabama go further than most people do, just because of that. Okay. Let's see this. Auburn. I'm gonna skip over some of. Well, anyway, you get the idea. Well, I'll put the other model back up, but hope this is helpful. And I hope some enhancements for next year, but and I might make some other videos. I have things I might want to share with you guys. I have models I built for fantasy football, baseball, and I don't know. Those will be future YouTube videos. So thanks for joining me today. And good luck in your tournaments.